Hello and welcome to the Foodeshow. Today I'm very pleased to have our partner, Coke Project and Semi with us, and as well another partner from Israel, Tama Saraka. How are you guys?
Excellent. Looking forward to this session.
Wonderful. So we are going to talk about startups and corporation collaboration. But before we do that, I want to ask Tamar first, if you can tell us more about yourself. You have 2 minutes. Let us know where you come from, what you've done, and how it's relevant to the subject.
Okay, thank you, Huda, and hello, everyone. I'm Tama Saraka. I was, since I was very young, in fact, in high tech. I have worked a lot of years both on corporation side, worldwide corporations, but also with startup, even at the time that this word did not exist, because we didn't know that what we were doing was going to be called a startup at the time. And I had the pleasure to work from France, and also since 12 years nearly now from Israel. I'm based in Israel, and what I'm doing in the last years is to represent worldwide corporations and investors in Israel in order to find the innovative companies and startups in Israel that they could collaborate with. That's in a nutshell.
Thank you, Tamar. And Semi, up to you.
Sure. Well, happy to be here. First of all, thank you so much, Oda, for the invitation again. So my name is Semi Hakeem. I'm the co-founder and also the CEO of Coke Project. What we are is we are a startup accelerator and a corporate innovation partner for the agri-food sector. Our headquarters are based in Istanbul, Turkey, but we mainly focus across the emerging markets from MENA to APAC, to sub-Saharan African region, or the former Soviet Union region. So we focus on empowering the agri-food startups, and we work together with companies, governmental organizations, investment funds, NGOs, and academia to basically build up platforms that would support food, agriculture, and water startups. So that's what we do in a nutshell as well.
Yes, well, thank you. You've been doing a great job, especially when in terms of data. I follow your publications, and I know that data is very important to these companies to be able to thrive. They need to know what's going on, what's not to do. And you both have extensive experience with startups. So what do startups really need to scale up, and how corporation can help them? This is broad, so whoever wants to start, let me know. Go ahead, Semi.
Sure, I would love to. So basically, way we look into it is basically when the startups look for collaborations with the corporates, is basically focusing on scaling their products and services and being able to have and track the applications in the field. So this can go from agri-tech or water irrigations to alternative protein products, who will be startups working with CPG companies. So the collaboration could vary, but the whole idea and whole point is for a startup to being able to connect the value chain of those corporations and being able to actually scale their products and services before they are do it with their sources. So that's, I would say, and what they would startups are looking into is definitely the field applications, a quick feedback, and being able to test their products and services into their value chain.
Tamar?
Yeah, I think adding to Semi points, which I agree on, is that startups really need some strategic partnerships, and the corporation are those that can bring that on several aspects. One aspect is, of course, to make sure that the product or service, the solution that they are building is the right one, and the input of the corporation, both from the understanding of the market, of the industry, is key. And also, the other point is really the access to markets. So they have as a partner the corporation, really helping them to access correctly the market and validate that the market that they are targeting is the right one. So that would be my two key points of that.
So it has to be a symbiotic relationship, Semi. And corporation obviously have the resources, they have the time, they have also the market access that startups don't have. So how can we make it a win-win?
Sure. So basically, I always love to give this example. It's you probably remember there was this movie in the series of Avengers where the Iron Man was actually fighting with the Hulk, but he needed basically a better suit which came from the space and went in and started to fighting with the Hulk, and that's way I see it, that's the successful collaboration between the startups and the corporates. The reason why behind that is that, the startups are already Iron Man or Iron Woman, where we see at the the next movie. But there's already the power of doing things, and there's a successful product and service, and then that the collaboration amplifies that product and service through a extensive value chain. Because otherwise, it's not just about for a company to have a spin-off product or a service to test out would it work or not, and then continue doing so, but rather actually affect positively their value. And that's why it's needed, but it needs to be shaped as well. It's not just about startups working directly with the corporates, but it needs to be determined which sections they're actually working on and which would be actually more successful.
Tamar, do you have any examples of how successful a startup worked with a corporation and which fields have been defined to work on? Because corporations can just buy them off sometimes. That's usually the case, and what happens, and they don't have that leveling field.
Okay. My key experience on that is that in order to make sure that this partnership would work, of course, there is a need of motivation on the corporation side with the right people. I mean, and it needs to be really supported by the top management, and that we have key stakeholders that are in charge, that are motivated, and that are really the guys and the girls who are going to get this moving forward and executed. As you said, the paradox is that the corporation is low speed, is difficult in terms of coordination, is difficult to deal with in terms of culture, and not to speak about contract and negotiation, while on the other side, the startup is exactly the opposite. And that's why corporations are looking after them, because they are speedy, they are quick switching if needed, they are agile, they have less hierarchy and less resources, so they can move forward. But that's exactly why all of this work and all of this partnership is needed. So there need to be a balance and some key actors on the corporate side to make this happen successfully. And when we meet as corporations or as representative on my side of corporation with startup, I always said, I don't want to define upfront what kind of collaboration there will be. I rather want to make sure that from the first discussions with a startup, we understand what they do, we understand what the value of what they are doing, and the value of the market that added value that they are going to bring could help us to be more competitive, to be more efficient, to succeed, to grow. And then I will try to see inside the organization where the most value could be brought with people in the organization that are motivated to take advantage of that. And here we can go and move forward to the next step. And sometimes it could be a partnership on R&D. Sometimes it could be a partnership on business. Sometimes it could be one of the two combined with an investment. And sometimes it could be a target for an acquisition as well. But I'm not defining that upfront, and I let the chemical effect going to be magic and get it done.
Semi, do you have any examples of how Coke Project was doing all this win-win projects? Sure. Go ahead.
We have several. I like to give actually, one I think that would be also aligned with the Foodeshow as well, is that one of the programs that we run a couple of years back was focusing on food and tourism. And we had stakeholders, from an angel network, a big scale food, CPG company, local entrepreneurship support organizations, etc. So it was a good setup for startups to being able to actually scale their products. What happened at the end of the program is that actually one of the startups started working with a restaurant chain who became actually quite widespread across Turkey. It was a startup focusing on kombucha, which is basically a fermented tea, but it wasn't something that we were expecting at the beginning of the program, but it happened through the program. We were expecting, maybe the startup will work with the company and do this, etc. But they're still going on, and this program was back in 2018. So, when I look back, even if we don't expect that collaboration, that happened. On the other side of the scale, we've been working together with one of the major banks in Turkey since 2019, and we work on basically sort of like a competition, a small program competition focused basically. What we do is that we look into startups who are on early stage, and we basically connect them with the bank through that competition. And this way, the startups will actually positively look into opportunities of business development or collaboration through the bank or the network of the bank. So with this way, the bank would develop their agriculture products, but the network as well, basically becoming the solution provider on the sector. One of the other examples that I can give is that one of the boot camps that we ran in focusing on the MENA region, we had also a stakeholder from the Chamber of Commerce. So basically, the idea was basically where the startups will be working with company representatives within that Chamber of Commerce. So it could be a variety. It doesn't need to be on a bigger scale where the startups are actually looking into the massive corporations and try to adapt their products and services. It could be also in the smaller scale. It could be on the governmental side, etc. But all comes down, at least in our experience, is that it needs to be formed and shaped. It's not just because it's cool to work with startups, which is absolutely it is, but in the end, there needs to be some KPIs and also determination. As Tamar mentioned, motivation, but it's also, a determined, problem where the startups can solve that and then scale from that. Because otherwise, it's just clouds up in the air that we talk about. You know what I mean? So that's why that was at least based on our experience.
Tamar, you wanted to add something before I ask the next question?
I just want to add an example of a company, and hopefully they are supposed to be here in the Foodeshow in a virtual bootcamp, in virtual booth. Sorry, it's a time of the timing, of the right timing. I have an example of a company in the agri-tech, clean tech industry, which has been in touch with the same corporations more than 7 years ago, I think even more, perhaps even 8 years ago. It's the same solution, the same team on the startup side. And there was a kind of contact and interest from the corporate side, but it was not enough mature, I think, at that time. And it took 2 additional years in order to have, again, a contact with that same corporation, with the right people. It's true that in the meantime, the management has changed, but then exactly the same solution, the same startup team, and the same market was enough mature in order to collaborate, and they have invested in them, they have collaborated, and we have now the situation where even that startup has grown so much and so well that they even went through an IPO by the end of 2020 with the same corporation. So, I mean, there is no magical formula, but of course, it has to be something that relates to perseverance, resistance, and going through. And if you are convinced on your side as a startup that this should be the kind of corporation that you should target, don't leave it and persist until you get the right support. If not that specific one, then find the similar one in the same industry that you could challenge and then move forward. But that's the way that I see it, in fact.
Well, that's very interesting, because usually you talked about teams and motivation of management, and it goes on both ways. Motivation is also on the team. So we asked the VCs what was the first thing that they would invest on, and they said the team. When it comes to startups, they will bet on the team and not bet on the idea, because if a team is knowledgeable enough, is motivated enough, they can actually put them in on right track and work with them towards the goal. Do you share the same experiences, or do you still think that the outcome or the project is more interesting? Semi?
Definitely the team. I mean, if we put it on the scale, it's definitely 70% of the team and 30% of the product or a service or business model, etc. I truly believe with a good team, any business model could be accomplished. Any product could make it better. Any service could be turned into a successful one. The whole point of the team is that being flexible enough to match with the corporation's needs, because when they come into the door to the corporate setting, the expectations are quite different. Even if in the idea would be the same, the expectations would be totally different, because the startups will expect that they are doing something good, so they will be left alone to do what they're doing actually good. On the corporation side is quite opposite. It's that they will be involved as much as they can, so that they can learn from the startup and being able to track and showcase what they're actually accomplishing through their business and products and services. So the relationships actually starts off with a totally two different expectations, but that comes into a one relationship where the startups is supported through the corporate setting, but that needs to be also determined from day one, because otherwise it doesn't provide that enough innovation for the corporate setting. I think that always comes down to the fact that how the team is, how flexible and how coachable they are, and how open to adapt to the collaboration with the corporates. Because in the end, corporates are their customers, and when they're working directly with the corporates in a way that focused on a corporate innovation program, they have to be adaptable for almost 100% to any of these changing schedules and agendas and expectations, etc. So they have to be agile on that, because otherwise that relationship never works. So it always comes down to the team's patience, perseverance, as Tamar mentioned, and also the flexibility, and also even most importantly how coachable they are to being able to reach out to those goals.
Tamar, do you still think you bet with the team, with the product or service?
Yeah, I would say that of course an idea is important and has to have some real value in order to bring that innovation to an industry. But when I look at the team, as you said, both. I'm not just looking at the CV, the experience, and the expertise, and the complementary value of each one of the team members, but I'm looking more at the capacity of that team to execute rapidly and to go through different phases in their life cycle of their company, which is a lot of very difficult time at the beginning, in particular, until the success show its face, and that's very tough. And going through that as a team and being able to collaborate and to execute with speed, and to be able to be enough flexible to adapt and to pivot and etc. is key. And I had really in memory always an example where we were looking at in the aerospace industry at a startup in the drone area, and that brings also value in the agriculture industry, by the way. But we had to participate at a demo of their solution, and it was quite at the early days of their life cycle. And we went there with a key representative of a big corporation. So the challenge was important, and and of course, as a lot is happening in those situations, there was a technical problem, and so they could not start the demo. And there, at that specific time, we saw the team at work, working really very well, and it was for us even more important than the demo itself. So it took something like 1 hour until they could solve the problem and started the show. But we already got our opinion and the proof that we got, of course, a solution that was interesting, but more than that, we got a team that was really outstanding. And I still see that today on that startup.
That's very interesting to mention, because the team is very important and they stick together. And usually there is programs that actually coach the teams, like Semi had said, and they do at their accelerator as well as the incubator in the process, or do the hackathons to work on specific projects. And that's what Coke Project is doing at the moment in different regions. Do you usually follow up? We have a lot of startups that are at the Foodeshow. Some of them are already in development. Some of them are in full expenditure, but they all looking to scale up. Any company in the world who is not trying to scale up or is trying to grow the business, I don't think the team is doing the right job. So tell them about the process and what they should be considering when they are getting into these programs. I'm not gonna lie, I've been approached by different programs, wanted me to enter into the the ecosystem, either because I'm a woman or it's my project that is interesting to whoever is there. But I don't have the time at the moment to do so. I want to be able to have something that is workable. It's much easier to find the right partners once I have a concept that is already set. So in your experience, how does it work, and when it's the right time to connect with these accelerators or programs or corporations? Semi, you wanted to share something?
Sure. So basically, I really love that question because I've been everywhere I go, like, all these, places across the world before when we were able to travel. I always, find myself in the questions is that what's actually the role of the accelerators and why do we actually need them? And my answer always comes down to this one. It's the sense of community, because being a founder and working in a startup is actually quite a lonely game. throughout the life cycle, as Tamar mentioned. So basically, this accelerators, or such as organizations who are such as ourselves, who are working also building communities, platforms where the startups actually connect with the corporates and also the other startups, is that what we're trying to achieve is to bring them the sense of community and sense of connection, to let them know they're not actually alone. On the scale that we are doing is basically saying that you're not alone, not just in this city, in this country, but in this region, in globally as well. Whatever solution you come up with, just let you know there's actually 5 of them in this region and 3 of them in this region. That's why we're doing the mapping as well. The way we see our mappings is that because we do it in a sort of like a different manner than the classical startup ecosystem maps, is that we feature corporates in there as well, because we want to showcase the teams that these are the companies you can reach out, and for corporates to say, these are the teams that you can reach out if you want to do that. To say these are the funds who are actually interested to investing on that. So we want to basically take out the fog of war out of the picture and basically support the startups to understand there's a lot of opportunities, because it always comes down to the fact that startups would feel that they're not actually going anywhere, they don't have enough potential or opportunities. And we always, try to come up to say there's actually a lot of stuff that you can do. It doesn't need to be in this country, but there's also other countries, because that's the beauty of food. We are interconnected in the food systems. Whatever we need, everyone needs. So we might not need another, fintech solution or a social media app or a voice focused social platform, but we do need to figure out, the problems that comes with climate change and water scarcities and all that situation. So that's why we work on basically showcasing that to the teams and the corporates.
Thank you, Semi. Tamar, what's your intake on that?
Of course, Semi is the expert on that. So what I will add is on my side, really perhaps the example of the Israeli model on that. I mean, there are some industry where if you want to build your startup in, there is a need to be in the ecosystem which is relevant to your startup. And in the early days of your startup, then the accelerator or the incubator, or whatever you call it, which give you access to that ecosystem in your industry, combining, of course, the cooperation. And the more it has an international representation in terms of that ecosystem, the better it is. So corporations, of course, the investors, innovation labs and academy and all kind of any other actors, even governments who are really focusing and giving a priority to your industry, are key to the success and the contribution to your startup. And in fact, the model in Israel and the example of Israel is very interesting, because as the market is not local, then there is no other choice than to think globally and to think from day one to a solution that would fit to be international, to be multilingual, to be compliant with different regulations, and so on and so forth. So here, that's why you will have to choose a program that is bringing and is focusing on your industry. That's not true for other kind of startup and solution, but in our case, for the food and agri and even water industries, that's for sure a need.
So I want to go back again, because I do sitting in a lot of panel discussions, and I get some thoughts. And when we asked the investors, so is there any innovation coming out of Africa? And they said, well, not investing in that region, because in that region, the problems they're trying to solve are very local. And we are trying to cater to the markets that have the most disposable income, that actually can pay for innovations, because innovations in the beginning are very expensive. Semi, I know that you're working in sub-Saharan Africa as well, in other regions, which is Latin America maybe, and MENA. Do you see any innovations coming out of that region, and what are the problems they're trying to solve?
For sure. I think that's a great question. Thank you so much for asking that. So basically, the expectations and basically the interest on investing or either working with the startups could vary based on the region. The reason why I'm saying that is that especially with the pandemic, well, we're still in the pandemic, but I mean, what pandemic bring is that more focus, especially on the MENA and sub-Saharan African region, is focus on food security. And when we break down to that, because food security is becoming something quite of a trend subject, when we break down to that, it comes down to food sovereignty, food safety, and then food security. So in short, basically being able to produce the food, secure the food in a most effective way, and being able to provide that to the consumers. So that connection and the need is actually quite vital when it comes to these regions we're talking about, especially with the food scarcity, but it's also water scarcity. It is expected will be affecting across the MENA region. We're seeing the same thing in the SSA region as well, in North Africa and South African, well, sub-Saharan African region as well. So the water is a massive issue. Food production is a massive issue. So the need of innovation, it's there. When we take a look at the ecosystems in there, that's actually coming along as well. Even if, because with the support of all of these, especially the ventures and funding, we're starting to have more interest on the, Pan-African region, especially focusing on Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa. We are personally, Kirk Project, with our local partners in the region as well, expecting there's going to be more innovation coming along into the picture in a couple of years. But there's going to be also more startups actually applying their products and services in the region as well. When we take a look at the Gulf region, what we're seeing is actually more focused on, the vertical farming and understanding that how they can actually produce the food without the need of any fertile soil or, massive amounts of water. And when we take, started moving upwards, is that we're starting to see, again, focus on food production and being able to track, optimize what we have as a resource and being able to integrate that to the picture. It's always, comes down to the efficiency as well. So I would say with the pandemic, it has more interest, and I would say we would see more startups coming along within these regions as well.
Do you have any experience, Tamar, in the regions?
Yeah, I'm looking at it more in terms of complementary value and successful collaborations between Israeli innovation and stakeholders in Morocco, but also in Africa. And I will take some examples. One of the first company in Israel which brought a great innovation in terms of optimization of water usage for the agriculture. It's called Netafim, and it was a company that has been present in Morocco a very long time ago, and they have really brought their innovation and the technology and collaborated with the local stakeholders in order to bring that innovation to the agriculture in Morocco. And I see that really I'm trying to focus on the industry which the Foodeshow is covering. If you look at the food industry, if you look at the agriculture industry, if you look at the water industry, the innovation and the technology contribution to those industry coming from Israel, which has been tested locally already, because we have in Israel the south region, which is desert. So we had the challenge of how to use the best way the natural resources, and how to make sure that in a region where we would say there is no possibility of having agriculture out of it, we do something in order to make it happen. So we tested it locally, and then we understood that we could bring that innovation to other regions which have the same challenges. But the more and more now thanks to the worldwide collaboration schema, which has proven its value, then you have some specific needs in Africa or in Morocco or in other region in Asia, that you need to adapt your solution or your technology, and you need to rethink how you apply that idea or that solution to that region. And that's where I really think that the global and cross countries collaboration makes a lot of sense. And we push towards it really nowadays. If we'll, thanks to the accords that are now allowing to do that more easily.
Mm-hmm. Well, Semi, you wanted to add something?
No, I was just nodding because, like, I totally agree to that. It just comes down to the point of that saying we're actually sharing the same water, same soil, and same climate across the globe. Doesn't matter which country or region you're from. We're actually quite interconnected. Even if we're not in the same continent, we're actually facing the similar issues. So, that comes down to the fact that, the agri-food startups, the water startups has the opportunity to just reach across the globe and apply their solutions. If it's good, it will be applied anywhere in the world. So to know that fact, I think that's just liberating for that should be liberating for a lot of startups to reaching out any country and any company they would like to work with. They have the option of choosing, because they're not really that much, they need to look into the regulation side of it. If their technology is so innovative and supportive to these challenges, I think they will work anywhere across the globe.
Thank you for saying that, because I just want to emphasize that at the Foodeshow, we're trying to connect the ecosystem as well, like Samar had said. And then we have a lot of accelerators, investors, as well as innovation scouts like Tamar within the Foodeshow. So on the in the incubation accelerator, we have a Coke project. You can contact Semi and his team. We have Food Techies in Finland that actually have a very interesting innovation hub that they had just put together and launching pretty soon. We have La Factory from Morocco that are working more on technical aspects. We have I think investors from Singapore, from Europe, and as well our partner, The Kitchen in Israel, that is actually working.
And the Fresh Start as well in the north of Israel.
Yes, yeah. And Fresh Start with Noga on the north. So there's the ecosystem exists. Reach out, get more information, connect, see if you have some shared values, if we can move it forward. And like Tamar and Semi said, persevere, because sometimes it takes a long time. The culture is totally different, and go for it. Before we end, I would like to ask you your advice in 2 words for the startups that are watching this session. What would it be?
I would say I'm gonna use 3 words. I would say go for it. That can be applied for any case. Just go for it. Go for it. That's what I would say.
And Tamar?
And on my side, I will say, as a continuation of what Semi said, if you believe in it, then persevere and don't leave that dream and unexecuted and not coming to life and to execution. So that's the same spirit exactly.
Wonderful. Thank you both for accepting our invitation. We look forward to your comments and connections with Semi and Tamar, as well as the other attendees. I'll see you on the platform.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.